North Korea is the most secretive country in the world. Today we're going to be talking about the culture of North Korea. North Korea has an incredibly complex and difficult to decipher culture. I've spent the last week finding credible sources to put together this presentation. Not much is known about North Korea, so I think it's important to spread awareness of the North Korean way of life. Today we're going to go over some of the traditional values of North Korea, some of the cultural dimensions of North Korea, and some of the commonly held beliefs and stereotypes held by the North Korean people. Now, moving on to values. What are the North Korean traditional values? These are kind of difficult to nail down. Many of their values are centered around their government. They even base their calendar and New Year on Kim Il-sung, the founder of modern North Korea's birthday, according to a World Travel Guide article. North Korea also has three main religions. They are Buddhism, Christianity, and Chundokyo. Now, the main ideology of North Korea, however, is called Juche, and Juche is Korean socialism. According to a ThoughtCo article, it was thought that Juche was Kim Il-sung's statement on self-reliance. Now, self-reliance is incredibly important to the North Korean culture. However, that doesn't mean that they've forgotten about their southern counterpart. In fact, according to the first in a two-part series on Asian Boss's YouTube channel, where they interview two North Korean defectors, the North Korean defectors state that they were taught and even encouraged to support the reunification of the Koreas. However, their reasoning might be slightly off, as their government has told them that South Korea needs help, and that the reunification of the Koreas would be for the purpose of providing aid to South Korea. Now, it's difficult to verify whether or not these values are fading or changing due to the near impossibility of finding new and relevant information from within the last 10 years. Now, moving on to the dimensions of North Korea. Is North Korea collectivist or individualistic? According to a Penn State article about Hofstede's dimensions in relation to North Korea, there's not really a definitive answer to this. It's kind of a good mix of both. In the individualistic standpoint, an individual is expected to be able to take care of themselves. In more rural areas of North Korea, you see more collectivism, where smaller communities try to stick together and support each other. However, you need to be careful about what you say or do at all times, even around those closest to you, in a more individualistic standpoint. Informants are often rewarded for reporting perceived rule breaking to authorities. This can include something as trivial as forgetting to put Grand Leader or General in front of Kim Jong-un's name during a conversation. This typically will lead to the individual who is accused being picked up by security police. Now, we are going to talk about some of the common beliefs and stereotypes held by the North Korean people. The most common stereotype that seemed to repeat itself throughout my research is that South Korea is incredibly poor. In fact, both defectors interviewed in the second video on Asian Boss's two-part series had this same misconception. When asked why they thought this, they said that that's what they were taught and told by officials throughout their entire lives. Even in school, they were taught that South Korea is full of homeless people. Now, the second stereotype we're going to go over is more of a forced common belief. North Korean government has told all North Korean citizens for many years that all foreigners are dangerous and potentially spies, according to a NK News article. Now, there are temporary and minor exceptions to this, which we can see in an article written in The Guardian by, at the time, the only Australian living in North Korea. In this article, the author, who is a university student in the capital of North Korea, Pyongyang, discusses his friendship with his North Korean roommate, with whom he shared a dorm for about 4 months. Now, this idea is also backed by authoritarian power. The idea of foreigners being dangerous was spread throughout North Korea after the fall of the Soviet Union, at which point North Korea stopped receiving aid from the Soviet Union. Now, even when ambassadors were welcomed in North Korea, the government still went to extreme lengths to try and hide anything and everything that they could from these foreigners. Even in present day, it's incredibly irregular to see a local North Korean person talking to a foreigner. And if a foreigner or local were to seek out a meeting with one or the other without prior written permission, then the local that the foreigner spoke to would likely be picked up by security police and may not be returned home. Because of this, since as late as the 70s, the 1970s, it's been common for North Korean locals to actually physically run away if a foreigner tries to approach them for conversation. Now, to summarize what we've been over, we have discussed the cultural values of North Korea. We have discussed the dimensions of North Korea in regards to collective or individualistic. And we have looked at several stereotypes or beliefs held by the North Korean people about outsiders. The North Korean people have an incredibly complex and hard to decipher culture. I hope you all can walk away from this presentation more informed than when it began. Thank you.